Dr. Carl Allamby, who is an emergency medicine physician for Cleveland Clinic, is proof it's never too late to pursue your dreams.
Before I became a physician, I was actually an auto mechanic and also a business owner.
But at 38 years old, after going back to college to earn his business degree, he decided it was time to switch gears.
And it was during the course of that educational endeavor that I was forced to take a biology course that reminded me of a lot of the childhood ambitions that I had to become a doctor.
From there, his dream was reignited and he began studying pre-med.
Usually it takes about 4 years to finish pre-med courses. It took me 5 just because I had to, work and provide for a family and be almost a full-time student.
And while it was hard work, his dedication never wavered. Neither did the support of his family.
My wife has been a really great supporter of mine.
Then in 2019, Carl Allamby officially became a doctor. He was the oldest person in his graduating class.
Being able to make this transition later in life and live out my dream that I had as a child, it was just a very incredible, phenomenal day.
The now 51-year-old spends his days treating patients in the emergency department and believes his background in the auto industry has really helped.
A lot of what I do in the emergency department is customer relations.
As for advice to others, he says anything is possible if you just believe.
I would say believe in yourself, and you'll be surprised of what you can accomplish.
For Cleveland Clinic, I'm Brittany Harris.
Dr. Carl, welcome.
Hi, Ron. How's it going?
So glad to have you. So glad to have you as a guest. That video is absolutely remarkable, and I wanted to dig a little deeper into that. Walk us through that from high school to automotive owner, mechanic, and I still have that dream. What propelled you to eventually go back to school to get that degree, which kind of kickstarted everything? Walk us through that journey.
Sure, Ron. And first off, I want to thank you for having me here on the CEO series. I'm so happy to join you here today and to be part of this and to share my story with the world, essentially. But when I started a business at a very young age. I was just 19, just out of high school and looking for an opportunity to make myself successful and to give myself some sort of employment. Because where I grew up, there just weren't a lot of opportunities for a successful career. I grew up in a very blue collar town and had a lot of great hardworking people around me that were great examples of how to live a life successfully as far as like taking care of your family. But I started this business because there just weren't many jobs in my area. Yeah. I just kind of fell into it, and the business grew and grew and grew. And before I knew it, I had 2 locations. I had a couple repair centers and used car businesses, finance department, and the business just continued to grow. I was employing people from around the community. I had over 3,000 regular customers, and it was awesome. Yeah. But there was something that was missing, Ron. I had not had a formal education prior to going back to school. I had a lot of experience through automotive training. Like I went to the local community college and went through their whole training course to become a master technician at a young age. And I took a lot of different business management courses just to kind of hone my skills so I could be as successful as I could in my business, but I didn't really have a formal background. And I felt like if I wanted to grow my business exponentially, that I was going to need that formal background in business training. So I actually enrolled back in school after talking with my wife and getting some encouragement from her and support, and went to business school, actually. And it was during this time at business school when I was finishing up my classes as the video talked about, and got forced to take this biology course. Wow. Now I got to tell you, Ron, back when I was a kid and growing up in East Cleveland, Ohio, I had always wanted to be a doctor. I used to marvel at my pediatrician when we come in there and I would be sick, and they lay their hands on you and you feel like everything is better. or as I got older as an adult and would have some kind of emergency care, end up in the emergency department. And these doctors would take care of you, and the nurses and all the support staff would make you feel better. And I had always thought that I wanted to be a doctor. I mean, I always had that feeling that I wanted to be a doctor at a young age, but I kind of lost that in the area where I grew up, where it was more about survival and making it through day by day, and not getting accosted by whatever random gangs were going on, and just trying to survive. And I mean, I was literally just surviving. And so when I got back in school and finished up this business degree and got forced to take that biology class as my second to last class before graduating, something clicked. And it was when I walked in that class, and the professor, who was a doctor himself, had, after working a long day, he would come there to teach us this very introductory biology course. But he was so excited about it. And you could see the knowledge that he had, the breadth of knowledge, and the passion that he had for the medical field. And I had that same kind of passion, I mean, all along for the automotive field. I mean, I am everything automotive, and in a sense, I still am. But that passion was palpable and contagious. And I walked out of that class after the first day, and I came home and told my wife, you know what? I think the next thing that I want to do is join the medical field. And I didn't know exactly in what sense.
Wow.
I told her that I was going to go back to the community college where I went for my automotive training, and I started taking pre-med classes. Wow. And I did phenomenally well. Now, Ron, I gotta admit something to you here. I gotta admit something. This is just going to be between you and me.
Okay.
I was not the greatest student in high school. I was awful. I barely made it out of that place. I mean, I was a smart guy. I mean, my teachers would always say, what's wrong with this guy? Like, he's really smart. Why is he not living up to his standards? But as I said, a lot of where I grew up was about surviving. Right. But my GPA was deplorable, probably too low to even admit to on, your publication here.
Right. That's okay.
Back to college, I really thrived. I mean, I really thrived. I was a 4.0 student. I graduated summa cum laude from my business degree. And I ended up, after going to the community college and getting some classes under my belt, I ended up going to another 4-year college and finished up a health science degree and got a 4.0 there as well, too.
Okay.
I graduated summa cum laude. So that was great. But, it was during my time at this community college where this one professor asked me, like, hey, what's your intentions here? You're like an old guy in a chemistry 101 class, probably chemistry 1500 or something. But I told him about my plan, and that I wanted to go into medicine in some shape or fashion. And he encouraged me to become a doctor. He was like, man, you really have the aptitude. You're doing well in all of the classes. You seem to have a lot of great intuition for this. And so we sat down after class and looked at some programs, and I ended up applying to a medical school, Northeast Ohio Medical University, and got accepted there after the trials and tribulations of taking the MCAT, which was...
I can only imagine.
Oh, boy, you want to talk about a tough test. And more to come after that, that just gets you in the door. I started medical school and had a phenomenal time there. I wrapped up my business after 25 years of serving the local community and employing people, and moved on into medicine. And I got to tell you, Ron, I couldn't be happier with what I do now.
Oh my goodness. Well, there was so many pivotal points. What I thought about as you was telling that story, you go home and you tell your wife, say, you know what, I want to become a doctor. But you said initially your wife has been your rock and support.
Yeah.
That must have been an interesting look she gave you, when you're married and you say you may come up with kind of an idea, but she was there for you to say, it's okay, and maybe we could try this. Yeah.
Right. I mean, she's really good with just rolling with the punches. I may come up with some harebrained scheme, and she nods her head at most of them. Sometimes she gives me some pushback. But on this, I mean, she was completely supportive. She knew all of the difficulties that I faced in business. I don't care what kind of small business owner you may be. Being in business is tough. I mean, it is a 24/7 operation almost. And, you know, I would barely get a break. I mean, we would hardly ever go on any kind of vacation, like a 3-week vacation a 3-day vacation every once in a while. And I was just working and working and working and didn't realize how much of my time I was investing in the business. And I never received a paycheck. I mean, from the age of 19 to my 40s, I always just took what was left over. And I know they say pay yourself first. And in a sense I did, but when times are hard, you know, you got to plow that money right back into the organization to keep it going.
Yeah, that's the fallacy, you know. And so this is when I was telling you about the business schools that will watch this show, because you have these big dreams, and, you know, you get this big job or you get this business and you think it's going to all be as what you see, but it's totally different. Totally different. It's exactly what you were saying. So if you look back on your career now, what would you say would be the pivotal moment of the changes that you've gone through? What was pivotal?
I mean, mostly it was that class. Number one, it was that class that I took. Okay. And then also what was pivotal was having the friends and the mentorship that I ended up developing in order to kind of guide me along the way. Because the course to medicine is so incredibly long. It takes so much time and so much effort, and you need people there who are championing you on, who will be your cheerleader, who will give you good advice. And I just had so many people who I developed throughout my years in my life who were able to give me that great advice and to help me move along that pathway. So there were other physicians like you know, Dr. Charles Modlin, Dr. Stephanie Gaines, and Dr. David Hedden, and Dr. Ken Lane, and just so many other people that I could name that kind of just ushered me along and would tell me that things are going to be all right. So surrounded myself with people who could put things into me. And Ron, so often I feel like, you know, one of the barriers to people's success is that, you know, you look at yourself and it's hard to see the capabilities that you have. You know, it has to come from the outside sometimes. So quite often people can look at you and say, hey, I know that you got it. I know that you could do this. And here's how you're going to do it. And they give you that advice. And it's important to have those kind of people in your life to lift you up and to help you see your greater potential. So having those people in my life was very pivotal and helped me out a whole lot.
I've always admired teachers. I remember my football coach and what I learned from him just in playing sports. In his class, excellence was what he wanted. He was a pain, but later in life, we had a chance to sit down. He had retired and just talked about life, and it was amazing. It was amazing, and we both ended up in tears just talking through that and the impact that an instructor or a teacher could have. And it's not just about course material and all of that. You're shaping future leaders. And, you know, when you think about when the doctor told you, even though they knew your age, said that you should go to medical school, that's amazing.
Yeah. And you know, I get a lot of people who reach out to me and ask me, you know, like, how did you do it? Do you think it's too late for me? And I tell people, don't let the years stop you, because the years are going to go by anyway. Yeah. I mean, whether I spent 9 years pursuing this dream to become a doctor, whether I did something else during that time, those years were going to slip by anyhow. And the only difference would be, am I where I want to be, you know, those 9 years later? And I try to tell my children that all the time. You know, I have this discussion about the Great Equalizer, which I call our 24 hours. I mean, because all of us have, that's something that makes us equal. I mean, we have the same amount of time throughout our day, and it really comes down to what you choose to do with your 24 hours that could either propel you ahead, keep you behind, make you further behind, or keep you stagnant where you are. So I try to tell people, young folks and my children, to use that 24 hours wisely.
Yeah. Do you find yourself spending a lot of time now going back to schools, talking to groups of people, talking about life in general and how you're in control, manage your time?
Ron, I do a lot of mentorship actually for lots of folks. I mean, all the way from junior high kids through other people who are physicians now. I do a lot of mentorship based upon those things, just to share with them some of the things that I have understood throughout my life and how I made it through that journey. So, and I think this is what has made my story so captivating, is that it covers a lot of different dynamics. I hear from people from all walks of life. I mean, you being in Dubai, and I've heard from people in Australia. I've been in papers in Africa and in the United Kingdom and Canada and radio shows, and I've done a lot of different things. But that's because my story has this, like a lot of people can envision themselves in my shoes from a lot of different perspectives. So whether that's being in a job that you feel like is dead end and you feel like you're not living up to your potential, or being an underrepresented minority in a field, being older, having a family that you have to navigate. I mean, my story just kind of encircles all of that. And I didn't even realize that at first. I was just going through the motions to get to where I knew I wanted to go, without even thinking about all those obstacles that presented in front of me. But now I'm able to share how I overcame those obstacles. In a lot of ways, it ignored some of those obstacles so I could just get through it and get the work done.
Yeah, those 24 hours that you talked about as being the reference point. So when you talk about those dreams and aspirations, because I hear people talk sometimes that said, I wish I would have, I could have, would have, and it's not too late to try that. Are they in a job? They hate the job, but they just consistently go through the motions. So I said, well, what are you doing to try to change that? Give me some strategies as what you're trying to do to move to the next step. And I can talk with them 6 months later. It's the same conversation. So stuck in that rut. Yeah. How would you advise someone that's stuck in the rut and they're in a loop and they're just kind of going through the motions, but they know that there's something there, but they're afraid to get off the treadmill?
Yeah, let me tell you, Ron, one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is that they have an idea of something different that they want to do. And they're like, I'm dropping everything I have today to pursue this dream for tomorrow. And you can't do that. Not if you have like real world responsibilities, not when you have people who are dependent on you to feed them, and bills that have to be paid, and, a life that you have to maintain outside of your aspirations for tomorrow. So I always encourage people to start small. Yeah. It's kind of like the same way when I started, back to working out as an adult. I used to, I was incredibly fit back when I was in my later years in high school, and kind of let some of that slip away as I was running this business. Yeah. But when I started back, I started small, running a few miles, working out in the gym, and kind of build it up, because, you see people who come in and they want to do it all today. They want changes like right now, and change takes a lot of time.
It does.
And so I try to encourage people to start small. I started by taking just a couple classes at the community college and getting my feet wet, because you have to be able to take care of those other responsibilities that you have. You try to do too much too soon, it all comes crashing down. Yeah. And especially when you're talking about medicine, because you will hear this when people talk about becoming a doctor, that it is a marathon. It is a long road. It is not meant to be a sprint. It's a circuitous pathway. You're going to be on it for a long time. So, choose wisely what you're going to do, because you're going to have to manage a whole lot of things in order to get to that goal. So I tell people, like, when they want to make a change in their life, sit down, write out the goals, write out the pathway. It's just like, driving from New York to California. You wouldn't do that without a map. You wouldn't just start driving west and hope that at some point you're going to
get there in 5 hours. Yeah.
You need a roadmap. You need planning. You need to stop. You need rest breaks. You need, to take care of yourself during this whole travel. So how do you do that? You have to plan those types of things. If you're not willing, I've always said, and probably other people have said, I probably picked this up from somewhere, but not planning is kind of like planning to fail. So plan your work and work your plan.
Yeah.
And that will get you to where you want to be.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons that we started this show was, as I mentioned to you earlier before we came live, was to talk about people that have faced obstacles and they've overcome that, and they one way and they moved to something else. Because with social media and all the new kind of approaches, and people think it's easy. They see you here and they say, oh, I want to do that. But they may not be willing to pay the price. My father had a saying. My father was a small businessman, a small-time businessman in the little town. He owned the largest taxi company. Well, the largest. It wasn't that large. And his thought was, if it was easy, everybody would be driving a Cadillac. So that was his metaphor for life. I mean, the success meant that you had the symbols of all of that. He said, well, was that easy? He said, but the vast majority of the time, everybody talks big talk, but they don't want to pay the price for the big talk and trying to drive it forward.
Yeah. Well, I talk, I have a 4-prong approach that I came up with all on my own, I think. I don't think I heard this, but I call it the 4 Ps, and that's planning, purpose, preparation, and people. So, and we could add a 5P on there. This is brand new for today. We're going to put passion in there as well too. Yeah. Passion also. Yeah. So you need all of those things. And if you have a plan, but you have no purpose, like, oh, well, I want to become a doctor. Well, why? Well, heck, I don't know. It looks great. I think they make a lot of money.
Good. I live well. Yeah.
So, if it doesn't come with purpose or passion, how do you get through the rough times? Because the times are coming. The seas are not all calm. It's going to be difficult. And that's with anything that you're looking at doing ambitious, is that things are going to be hard. So if you lack passion or purpose, or the planning that goes behind it, and we could add on one more. Let's do perseverance.
We're picking ground here. We're picking ground.
Yeah. Sorry, I think I had the sun coming through here. It's kind of altering.
Okay, that's okay. You're cool.
Altering my screen here. So you need all of those things in order to make it through. So I'll come up with some more P's as we go along.
I think we got enough to create a stamp. One of the key of the P's that you mentioned was passion. Passion will drive the cloudy days. From my side, passion will drive the cloudy days. Passion will cause you to refocus because you're passionate about what they do. I was working with a group this morning out of Singapore, and I told them, I said, we all have these dreams and aspirations. And I said, but do you really enjoy what you do? Because people say TGIF, everybody's glad it's Friday. That's understandable. But I said, how many of you feel TGIM? Yeah. And they said, are you kidding me? I said, yeah. Are you excited about the first part of the week? Oh my God, no. I hate the first part of the week because I don't want to do what I said, that's what we're talking about here. So that's always been my kind of approach, is that I enjoy Mondays. I enjoy Mondays when work comes back around the Ferris wheel. Yeah. Ferris wheel. Yeah.
Now I am an emergency physician, so I don't have like the typical Monday through Friday work life. So my schedule varies, tremendously, but I am always happy to come to work and do the work of the people, for the people, the things. I frame it in the sense of, this is what I get to do. It's not what I have to do. This is what I get to do. So, included in my responsibilities as an emergency medicine physician, I'm also a life flight physician. So some days for another hospital, I'm out flying in helicopters and doing sorts of rescues or transports. And also I'm a medical director of a couple cities here for their EMS and fire departments. So sometimes I'm riding on a fire truck or ambulance or flying in a helicopter. I teach other doctors. I'm an advanced trauma life support instructor as well, too. So I teach other doctors and healthcare professionals about how do you treat, stabilize, and take care of people who are trauma victims as well. So I get to I have a lot of variety in my job, but I love it all. I mean, when I have something to get up and do, I embrace it. And that's the way that I've always been. I mean, I think that's just my nature, because I was the same way in the automotive field. And a lot of that comes from around the people who I've been with. As I said, I grew up in a blue collar town where there were hardworking people who got up every day to get to work, to get it done, to take care of their families.
Yeah.
And those people left an impression on me of just how hard and how dedicated they were. And that's the way that I like to approach life. You know, they call me the happiest guy in the ER sometimes. But it's because I try to keep a positive mindset, because also the rest of my team is looking at me. And so often, as you can imagine, in emergency medicine, and especially after going through the years of COVID, I've seen a lot of tragedy. I mean, I've seen a lot of hardship and people who have had life turn on a dime, change in a moment's notice for them. And so I've had to deal with all of that stuff. And so how do you keep your team together? How do you keep people focused on what's important at those times when there's when there's so many different things that are going on around you, and so much different tragedy and death? And you have to keep people focused, and the leadership comes from the top down, and people are going to follow the cues that you set out there.
You're exemplifying. When you think about emergency medicine, you're there, and all of a sudden the doors open, and there's this case comes in. There's this. How do you stay grounded, calm? Techniques for that, because people get stressed out at work over work, and you are life saving. Patient is here, blood is all over the place. This one's here. What's the equilibrium to?
Yeah, Ron, let me tell you, I stay really calm in situations like that. I don't get too worked up. I try to stay objectified as to what we're trying to do there, that we're trying to save somebody's life or stabilize somebody, or sometimes we're even trying to usher them into the afterlife, whatever comes after that. So I just try to do it with grace, and I try to remember that the people who are around me are counting on me to be that person who can stay focused. Because there's a lot of things you have to think about, and oftentimes seconds do matter.
Yeah.
Especially when there's a life on the line. You want to take it with all seriousness and with your full attention.
Yeah.
So even if you're tired, it's been a long day, or you've worked a lot of shifts back to back, that adrenaline happens, or that
soon as
that
call
comes, that call comes that somebody's in trouble, and you get up and you do what you're trained to do. So I just try to stay focused and just positive minded. And then I also like to query my folks who are there too. If we've had a troublesome case, that we'll talk about it afterwards. We'll talk about the things that went right. We'll talk about what we could do to improve our strategies and what we do. And I try to always let people leave with no regret, that we put it all on the line and we did everything that we could.
Okay. You gave it your all. You talked about you were in charge of that team. They're looking for you for guidance, exhibiting leadership. I do a lot of leadership development, and we talk about these kind of things. You at the top, the so-called top of the proverbial pyramid, but it feeds from the bottom up. So you're sensing that, and give us your interpretations of leaders and leadership, because you can't have you work in an office, something happens, you're trying to build this strategy to get over here. That's not life-threatening, but someone comes in, all of a sudden everyone has to go into action, everyone plays their role, and everyone's on point. What's key to guiding that?
Well, I think knowing what your purpose is, once again, knowing your purpose and how you fit in the organization, and knowing what you have to give to that organization, and just fulfilling that. Being the person who could be counted upon when that occurs. And I got to tell you, it's not much different than some of the things that I faced in my automotive field.
Really?
And maybe I had a lot of training with dealing with the unexpected nature of how things occur through all my years in automotive training. Because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you had to drive into work today, but if you were, imagine you're driving into work and your car breaks down, or the tire falls off, or
Yeah.
the engine explodes.
Yeah.
And you've had all these things that you plan to do throughout this day, and now you're suffering this tragic loss, although it's just your car and it may be replaceable, but still it's a tragic loss because life has kind of changed from what you expected it to be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so where do you go from there? So a lot of times people would show up to my shop and would, they're in tears, or they're distraught because they don't know what to do. They don't know how they're going to pick up the kids after school, how they're going to get to work. My God, it's going to cost what? And it's going to take a week to fix.
Yeah.
So all these things just get thrown out there. And so I've learned early on to just to take care of people in their time of need, and that life is more complex than just the thing that you see that you're dealing with right now. I'm a solver of problems. That's my main job, is to solve people's problems.
I use that.
And that was true back when I was in the automotive field. And that's true now that I'm in medicine. And with that comes the need and the requirement to be compassionate and to have empathy for people who are suffering, who are struggling, who have had their lives turned upside down.
Yeah.
So I think if people can remember those kind of things, no matter what the scenario is, like what role do you play in this organization? How can you help people? Because all of our jobs are about making things easier for somebody else.
Yeah.
I think, most people's jobs come down to that, in a sense.
Yeah.
And so just fulfilling that need and that requirement is just very important.
Mm. With all the disruptions and innovations, I saw a video the other day on YouTube, and someone was literally, a surgeon was really at a console operating on someone that was 1,000 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what I'm going to go to now is that you are a learner. How do you continuously learn? How do you stay abreast of what's happening in your field, emergency medicine? What are some new how do you learn? Your days are full. You're working here, and on the off days you're doing this. You're in a helicopter here. How do you carve out that time for space to grow?
Well, once again, my life as an automotive technician has trained me well for this. Cars have changed throughout evolution. When I started working on cars, they were carburetors, and you could probably fix almost anything with a screwdriver and a pair of vice grips. But then later on, all of the computer technology came out, and fuel injection, and all this high performance, all these different strategies for getting the most out of your vehicle occurred. And that's the same thing in medicine that has occurred as well, too. So I've always believed in continuing education. Always you have to retool yourself. You have to learn more. And Ron, just as important as it is to learn, you have to have the ability to unlearn as well. Because the truths of today may not be the same as the things that are required for tomorrow. Because technology changes, the understanding, I get a lot of people who say to me, well, Carl, it has to be easier to work on a human body because it hasn't changed, since the beginning of time, mankind. Right. But maybe the human body hasn't changed. But in a sense it does change, because we do have to adapt to our environments as those change. But then also the technology and the understanding of the human body is what has changed. And so you constantly have to learn things. There's constant new studies out. There's new drugs. There's new ways of doing things. We look at some of the things that people did long ago in the beginning days of modern medicine, and they seem like cavemen for some of the procedures and some of the what looked to be barbaric. And one day people are going to look at us the same way as some of the things that we did, some of the invasive procedures that we do even still today, that there's an easier way or a better way
Yeah.
to do it. So you have to learn those techniques of today, but as new techniques and technology grows, you have to learn how to change your mindset and embrace those different things, because you could be left behind if you're holding on to the old for too long. So I constantly stay involved in education, and somewhere I fit it in. I mean, I have a lot of learning materials that I use, still test banks and everything, because I think that that's a great way to learn, like question banks, and then also listening to people who are leaders in the field of emergency medicine and other areas of medicine, listening to a lot of the new techniques or technology or studies that have been done. That's how I stay abreast to everything that's going on there. And I truly, truly love learning. I mean, I get excited about just learning new things. So turns out you can teach an old dog new tricks.
Old dog new tricks. I was going to come with that, but you took it off the plate. So I love the concept, and I think that's so important today because things are moving so fast. I was telling the group that I was working with this morning, I said the thing that bothers me so say, well, I've been doing this for 15 years and this is the way it's always worked from that side. And I'm like, dude, you're talking 15 years, 20 years ago, people interaction, everything has changed as a result of that. And lots of times when I'm talking to people, that's the biggest hurdle that they need to overcome, because they're still stuck in a different time zone and they're not willing to move forward.
Yeah. Ron, I always question myself about, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong about this? I question that when somebody comes in who's acutely ill. Well, I'm going to try this intervention, but what if this doesn't work? What's the next step? What should I be prepared for? And then preparing for those things. Always, I don't know if you want to call it self-doubt, but you should have some kind of self-doubt. That keeps you humble. Yeah. I am always going to work towards perfection, but I know that I will never be perfect. But it's never going to stop me from working towards perfection. But I'm always going to question myself about, what is what I'm doing here right? Am I doing my best? Am I giving it my all? Could we do something different? Maybe the next time we can. And that's how you learn. Yeah. And you also have to think that your way is not always the right way, that there may be several different ways to get to the same answer.
Exactly.
And you may just have to take a different pathway to get to that. Some may be easier, some may be harder. Yeah. But you always have to question, am I right? Or is there more than one way to do this right? Yeah.
I thought this is what I found, and because I work with a lot of larger companies, the younger leaders are leaders that have gone through major trajectories are more willing to listen than the person who may have come up totally different. And I think you can take it from there. And they've always been been at the right place at the right time. And they feel that that's the way it should work for other people. And lots of times it's kind of tough to change the mindset of a person who has I know it all. This is the way we do it. My way, highway. And I say that to say, people will gravitate towards you because your story is so interesting. So as you have already made this transformation and you're moving towards this, this, I don't want to say new career, but you're in this career and you're moving towards this career, do you find that resonates, especially when you're at a medical school and you're talking to young doctors about how you made the decision, you had a dream, delayed, but you still move forward? Does that impact younger doctors or doctors in training? I don't know what you'd call it, doctors in training. But if you've gotten feedback on that, how inspiring your story is, because when you look online, and we saw the video, and I saw a lot of the other videos, it's inspiring just to watch the video.
Yeah. Ron, I hear from thousands and thousands of people, like just so often. I try to get back to as many people as I can. I get a lot of people who reach out to me who want to, who are in the medical field, who are thinking about emergency medicine, who want to shadow me. And I allow people to on a limited basis whenever I can. But yeah, I get young and old people who reach out to me who are just inspired, because I mean, I don't know exactly what it is, but I could imagine that, my unusual life in the medicine has, they know that if I made it this far, that there must be something that's going on that I'm doing right.
Yeah.
And they want to hear about that.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to work hard and trying to encourage young and old people to go after the things that they want.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just so many different ways to do that. But I think even young folks, like there are just so many young people that I could think of that I work with who are inspired to just come in and hang out with me for a little bit or to talk with me, just so they could get some ideas, because it is so tough. I mean, and for a lot of people who are interested in medicine, if you don't come from a traditional background, like say where your parents or, several family members have been involved in medicine, it's hard to know what to expect. It's hard to know the pitfalls and the landmines. And I really had to be proactive in seeking out help and guidance with understanding those kind of things, because you could easily lose your way. Mm-hmm. So those young folks who do come to me and ask for advice, a lot of times it's because they don't have a traditional background of people that they could rely on who help them along that pathway. Yeah. So I just try to be that sounding board and give them advice and tell them they could do it. But, I have oftentimes told these young folks, when they're deciding whether or not they want to go into medicine, that the biggest obstacle that they will ever face is the one right here, telling them that maybe they can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so true. The coach that's inside of here does more damage to anyone's life than any other process or whatever it is. Self-doubt. Don't want to try. Safe over here. I don't want to move forward.
Yeah, and I understand, it's hard to go outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But I've had this saying that I've always tried to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Okay.
Because that's how you really grow. If you find, I still say that about patients. If I have a patient who checks in, you look at the board and it's like, they have the initial complaint of whatever. And we all have our ones that we don't like, that are tough. Yep. But when I see those and when I feel this cringe in my gut, I'm like, I need to go see that one. Yeah. As long as I continue to feel that way, when I see that circumstance that maybe makes me uncomfortable in my gut, that's exactly what I need. And that's what I try to do with my whole life. When I feel uncomfortable about something, that's when it's time to dive in, because that's when you grow. Yeah.
Do you ever look back and say, what if I did not do this? Maybe you would have had a whole chain of calls, auto repairs, global entity, and you were in the office, and now you got all the other mechanics doing it. Have you ever given thought to looking back on that and said, what could have been if I would have stayed there? Would I have been happier than being happy here? Have you ever given any reflection on that?
I have, Ron. And that was my initial intention with going back to business school, was that I was going to pursue an MBA and maybe join corporate America, maybe grow the business as large as I can, have, offices in Dubai and although maybe in Alabama too.
All over Alabama in a day. Yeah.
Yes. I thought about those things, long ago. Yeah. But I'm so happy where I am right now. I try not to think about the what ifs of back then. Okay. I know that the years of COVID, like for so many small businesses, were incredibly difficult for just so many. And a lot of people had to close up their business or close up their shops because of those things. Yeah. And I feel like I was lucky to escape that as far as from the automotive field. Because if you think about it, nobody was driving, nobody was buying used cars. The industry kind of just dramatically shrank. And if you didn't have the resources to weather that kind of storm, I know people personally who just had such a difficult time, not only just in the automotive field, but in so many different businesses and areas of their life, that it was really tragic situation and things that people are still recovering from. And that includes healthcare as well too. I mean, with me being in an emergency department, I saw a lot of really a lot of bad things, and it was hard for some time. So we had it rough there too, and so many people decided to give up medicine or got burned out from it during that time, and it was really sad. But we're recovering. We're bouncing back, and we're coming back strong. We're going to be stronger than ever.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, in closing, one of the goals of the show is that we talk to people that have had unique opportunities, faced tragedies, and then moved on, and they built successful careers. I'm going to connect you with some people, some doctors I've had on this show that's done some sort of the same things. So that was the platform for the CEO series to build that out. So, in closing, what advice would you give to our listeners about facing difficult choices? How do you navigate? What's some overall advice you would give to the CEO series?
I would look at them and say, you can do this. You are capable. You are capable of more than what you know. Have people around you who are going to lift you up. Get a group of people who are your confidants, who are your mentors, and they could be younger, they could be older. Just people who will lead you in the right direction. Keep faith. Keep a positive mindset that you are able to overcome whatever obstacle is put in front of you. Mm-hmm. And try to not look at disappointments as losses, but as opportunities to get better. Sometimes those challenges that you have faced in your life and the things that you weren't so successful at can open up other doors to other things, and you never know what's possible.
Yeah.
And lastly, to be prepared. I mean, to not procrastinate, to work to prepare yourself for when those opportunities come about, because they will.
They will come about.
And I didn't understand this term when I was younger, but chance favors the well prepared. So if you are prepared, you are more than, a lot of people think that they were just lucky, but a lot of times they were prepared. And when the opportunity came, they were ready for it.
They were ready to move forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Call, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. And as I said, I was so looking forward to having this conversation. It feels as if I've known you for years. So let's stay in touch. I want you to hang on as we begin the process of closing out. So thank you so much for being a guest. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take the CEO series with you anywhere, anytime. All episodes are now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and major streaming platforms. It's not just an interview. It's a masterclass in leadership.